This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by Sir Josh of House Nathan. Thus is our treaty written, thus is agreement made, thought is the arrow of time, memory never fades. What was asked is given, the price is paid.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded, and we have answered the call. Today, we are covering The Fires of Heaven, Part 1, Chapters 1 through 5. And in our Village Council, we will be rediscussing Tom's guitar.
As first, hey, let me just get this out of the way. I should maybe apologize. I was apparently a little negative, I suppose, towards the teaser, the Moiraine teaser on YouTube.
Yes.
So I apologize if I certainly offended anyone. There's certainly one comment that said I was just negative the entire time.
How
but
dare
you know
you?
what? Hey, what's to say that wheel won't spin and it'll be changed. 6 second clip, 2 seconds of black frames, 2 seconds of white frames at the end.
Right.
We get two. So we actually only get 2 frames of Moiraine. Her hair is kind of blowing. It's a bright white light. She doesn't even say anything. But you know, I guess maybe what I'm ultimately getting at here is I want more.
Yeah, there it is.
Show me something. Show me something to really get excited. Okay, you know, it's like, okay, the horn's cool. The first one I thought was the best so far. The Wine Spring Inn. It's like, okay, I can see what the set looks like. Then the concept art was cool.
Right.
This doesn't really do much for me because it's, if you'd shown me like her costume, or I would have been more glad just to see her costume not even on her. Just like, hey, here's what some of the costuming is going to look like. But I guess ultimately what this is going to lead into is a discussion that Ez and I have had a little bit off air. Our buddy Sir Jimmy and I have certainly had, and we'll be doing a live stream on his channel, the Fantasy Network YouTube.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to have him on maybe next episode again here. So ultimately what this kind of leads into is, who are these teasers for?
Yeah.
Do you find them odd?
Well,
does it make it, do these teasers to you say the show's coming soon, or the show's really far away and we kind of have already started hyping it and we don't want to potentially lose anybody? One of the things we've talked about is, if this show doesn't launch this year, could that be really bad for it? Like, wow. I think it's, I'm going to say that I think this show needs to launch this year, almost has to launch this year, to have a real success to succeed, because next year you're going to have the new Game of Thrones show.
Yep.
And you're going to have potentially the Lord of the Rings show. Yep. And Wheel of Time is not as name brand to the majority of mainstream audiences as Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And is it going to find itself struggling to compete with those?
Well, and one thing you're saying is that it could make itself more name brand right now if it, you know what I mean? It could get that Wheel of Time logo name out in front of people before the other big, big players step back on the stage and start competing again. So, I hear you. I mean, I think the other like what we're getting at here is, will it still be successful? Yeah, it's Amazon. Yeah. It's good. But like, could it be? Is it like to be like that mega hit? Like, you remember when Stranger Things came out and just kind of took over? Like, that's a whole different kind of thing.
Right.
But that level of kind of hype where everyone's talking about it, just to kind of, I don't know, that frenzy is that can happen now.
I think look at a show that I haven't really watched it, and probably for this reason, A show that everyone who has seen it has told me is amazing. I've yet to meet a single person tell me that the show Vikings is not amazing. Everyone who's watched it is like, oh my God, if you love Game of Thrones, you will love Vikings. But you start at, if you love Game of Thrones, you will like Vikings. And Vikings obviously was not as successful as Game of Thrones. Not saying it's a bad show or anything, but I mean, clearly it was not like mega hit like Game of Thrones. It's successful in its own right. But that's where I think Wheel of Time has the potential to be the next Game of Thrones. I mean, the next Walking Dead, the next Breaking Bad, like one of those shows that like everyone is seemingly talking about. Right. But I think if they launch it next year, and I know that obviously COVID and all this stuff, I mean, HBO has said House of the Dragon next April. It's It just started filming right now. They're filming right now. And then that's just sort of in that sort of genre. You're not talking about any other mega shows it could go up against. I mean, Stranger Things, all the Star Wars and Marvel, all the stuff that they're doing. Launching your show to get that kind of prime time thing is important. And I think it would struggle. I think it would struggle in a year that's going to be dominated by people getting back into Game of Thrones. In a show that I think has the potential to be even better than Game of Thrones, because we already know the story in it and it's less disappointing at the ending. Right. And whatever this Lord of the Rings show is going to be. Yeah.
I really think, and really hear us here. I mean, we run a Wheel of Time podcast. We want this show to be
absolutely
like very successful, and we're hyped about it. I think it's interesting that HBO and other, companies have said with their projects, this is the date, like April 2022, right? This is most likely going to come out for House of the Dragon or whatever. And this thing's, I mean, we don't really know where Wheel of Time is yet. We haven't got a hard date like that, like, hey, October, whatever, November, something. I mean, that'd just be nice to hear and have. And maybe that's the next big thing that's coming soon. We keep hoping that. Just give us that date so we can say, all right, here's the march to like 3-4 months away, 6 months away, whatever it is. And I think that'll help it a lot. And I think because we're still, even in the summer, going into the fall, we're still going to be dealing with a lot of COVID kind of, things and issues and stuff. So people are going to the streaming services. They're getting HBO Max. They're getting Amazon Prime, different things. So now's the time to really do that, I think, and to really put your big show out there. So anyway, I hear you. I agree with you, and I'll be interested to hear what people think about this. Again, this all started. Matt's not trying to be negative, guys. We're just being realistic.
Exactly, man. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is ultimately just where we're at, and I want the show to be as successful as possible. And I just think, if you launch against or relatively around the time of something else, I mean, just let me give you an example, right? Mm-hmm. And then we'll move into the thing. So obviously WandaVision comes out and it's like mega, everyone's talking about it. This is amazing. Then you have this Captain America Falcon show, which, by the way, I haven't even watched yet, right? And I think a lot of people haven't even watched because we're still getting over WandaVision. But then 1 week into it, they launched the trailer for the Loki show that's coming next. And Loki's a character we care about way more, right? I mean, there's more people. I see more people talking about the Loki trailer than I see people talking about the Captain America or the Falcon Winter Soldier. Right. See, it's not even Captain America. It's like the guys that like were with Captain America. You know what I mean? Right. Like show. And so that's what I don't want to happen with Wheel of Time. I don't want it to be like, well, it's not as good as the,
Right. It's kind of snuck in there, buried between two other shows,
just because of what comes out, right?
Yeah, yeah. We want it to be the show where it's like, hey, if you liked Wheel of Time, you'll like this show. That's exactly what we want to have happen, and I know they do too. And there's probably obstacles, COVID, production, whatever, But my God, if there's any way for the Wheel to weave this show out, like come this fall, I just think it'd be huge. So, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we're talking about Tom's guitar.
Yeah, actually, so we have a pigeon, as we call him here, from Scott Rogers, and just got this the other day here. So I figure we bring this to the top of the show, where we talk about some show news and different things. Scott says, "Hey guys, I'm a podcast listener. Am in book 5 on my first read, but following along with your progress, it helps me as just kind of remind myself as I pay forward." And it's good to go back and get those reminders as to, what has happened. Anyway, a small observation about a show change that has received some small controversy. Tom's guitar. Just a perspective. A show has to condense as much as possible. A guitar affords the opportunity to multitask scenes that a flute wouldn't. Tom can talk or at least recite informative song lyrics where he wouldn't be able to with a wind instrument. Actually, that makes a lot of sense, right?
That's a great point.
Yep. Even facial expressions and glances now more able. Same with Rand in Eye of the World with the flute/guitar. A flute creates dead space on screen. Professional musician myself, just occurred to me and wanted to share. Sounds like a practical kind of change. So that's one of those things when we talk about film or book adaptations, going to film or TV shows or whatever. Like, yeah, that's the kind of, I would love to be in on some of this stuff where I just a fly on the wall listening to that conversation, because that's probably exactly, Scott, what they came up with, which is we can do more, we can convey. I mean, whether he's a bard, right? I mean, he's able to kind of sing or recite and do different things with his guitar, maybe more so than a flute. And Rand probably similar, yeah.
I agree with it. And from a marketing standpoint, I mean, think about how many when the Hobbit came out, right? Yeah. And they had that awesome song Misty Mountains Cold, right? YouTube's flooded with people like covering the song, and all of this stuff, and you get a lot more of that with there's a lot more guitar players out there than there are flute players. Okay. Yes. I mean, I don't know what the number is, but I would have to say at least 2 to 1. Okay. I mean,
I can't believe you're this guy's knocking flute players now. Jeez, Matt's he's on the tear.
I played clarinet, okay, and then
go.
And then I played trombone. So Ez played the viola.
I played the fiddle. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So
we played the viola. Is a viola a fiddle?
It's a larger fiddle. I don't know. It's basically the
cello
lesser
a fiddle. I mean,
yeah, I get it. I don't know. I thought the viola was pretty cool, but yeah. So
have you seen that TikTok? There's like a TikTok meme going around of how to play cello in a marching band, and it's like some guy and he's sitting on a chair and then he's like playing 2 notes and he like picks up his chair and runs and he's like knocking everybody over and he just like sits down and plays like 2 notes and like just like it's funny.
There's actually those guys in some bands. I don't know if someone has like strap. They got like a cello strap, man. Like
what?
I think they put it around their thing and they can actually stand up and play it. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, something to look up. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, no, thanks, Scott. I mean, I think that's cool. And I think it's the things you got to think about, the practical kind of reasons why you would change, an object or what have you. I mean, even Tom's story, I think, is going to be actually a lot different in season 1. It's going to look a little different. He's probably going to stay with the crew, not do his whole disappear, come back type of thing. Dude, they could use that anywhere in season 2, season 3, whatever. At some point, you could have Tom face down, a Murdral, and then boom, he's off and, then he's gone, then he comes back, everyone's worried about him. I think you need the time to build him up, which we've said this before, build that character up, make him matter, be super epic. Something else they could do, and I just thought about this, with Tom, they might actually not have him maybe join that main group. Maybe he follows, and he's a guy who we start to see at the Wine Spring. Then we see, I don't think we're going to be at Barillon, but let's say we saw him again at Barillon. Then we saw him again in Caemlyn. Or maybe, Four Kings or whatever. And we start saying, who's this guy that's tracking our group? That might be a way to kind of, then you bring him in. Who knows? I'm just throwing out ideas as to how things could be slightly different. So
yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
Okay, as well, let's move on over to the reread today. Just again, these were bigger chapters, so we're doing chapters 1 through 5 here. So chapter 1, Fanning the Sparks. Chapter 2, Rhuidean. Chapter 3, Pale Shadows. Chapter 4, Twilight. And Chapter 5, Among the Wise Ones, as we already did the prologue. So Chapter 1 here, as we're just going to kind of do, we're only talking 5 chapters, but they're bigger. I like it. Man, I got to say, at the beginning of the books, I always say this, and I think Robert Jordan does a great job of just sort of setting the stage. Mm-hmm. As if you picked up this book for the first time, he doesn't leave you sort of high and dry. Like he'll always kind of give you a brief kind of summary as just to what's going on. Like if you had just picked this up and opened it, you'd kind of be like, okay, well, so these people kind of did this and this is where they're at. And it's a good recap, especially when you're dealing with characters who haven't seen in a while, or really didn't see a lot of in sort of the last book. I mean, we're here with Min and Suan and, a lot of these people who they weren't really prevalent a lot in the last book. So that's kind of where we're at. It's kind of fun, actually. I got to say, as much as I the last book ended and in the prologue, I was like, oh man, it's like everything ended and it's like Perrin's dealing with the White Cloak and he just told him to basically like, off. Basically. And then Rand's dealing and he's now going to be trained. He's going to be trained by a Forsaken and all of this stuff. And it's like, okay, this could be really, really cool.
Right.
And then it's like Eliida. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. But it was kind of cool, actually. Once I kind of read these 5 chapters, I was like, all right, it's kind of cool to get like Suan out on the road. Right. Exactly. And get to see like different sides of people.
Yeah, no. And again, we're going to do some major takeaways here because I'm with you on it's nice when you come back to, I'm actually okay with him taking a break in a world this big. He doesn't let characters go for too long before he comes back and says, here's where they're at. Let me catch you up on all of this. And so, right back in with Min, Suan, Leanne, and what's happening with the White Tower. We know there's some, we said it in the last, I think we had Sir Jimmy on when we said this. We said, who is doing the stilling? Who is the still? Someone needs to stop the stilling. It was just crazy. So we have to come back to that and say what's happening with Suan and where is she going. I did want to read real quick. So chapter 1, Fanning the Sparks. I love this. I think I did this for The Great Hunt. I'm not sure if I've done it for every book, but I really love the beginnings of this. And so we'll just, since it's part 1, the wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the great forest called Bramewood. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. I'm telling you right now, every time I read that and I hear it and I start a new book, I just get fired up. I'm just like, this is, there are neither beginnings nor ending. This is a beginning. And it's so cool. So let's jump into some of this. We'll kind of read to you guys some summary here and then we'll kind of discuss it. But you have Min, Suan, Leanne, they're locked up and in a town called Core Springs in Andor after they, quote, accidentally burned down a shed belonging to one of the villagers there. Now, the connections here, we're gonna have a lot of connections to Caemlyn, actually, which is going to be interesting. We're going to get old Gareth Bryne here in a second. But Logain knocked the man down, and he made a run for it. So after this thing is lit on fire, Logain is with them. Remember, he goes with them when they leave the tower. So in the process, his name is Admer, I think, Admer Ned, dropped his lantern, resulting in the loss of the barn and several cows. Now, hear me out. I don't know that, who caused the fire here? Logain for knocking him down? Come on. That guy was in his way, So anyway, they're all blamed for this fire and the big accident. Min, Suan, and Leanne, those are not the names that they're using, right? We know that they go by different names. Min asks Suan what she thinks their penalty will be for this. She seems to think that, like a strapping on the village square, maybe. I mean, Suan's obviously frustrated by not finding a word on a gathering of Aes Sedai, and by this new obstacle and she's upset about this new obstacle that's in their way. So one thing to remember, they are on the run, right? They're leaving the tower and they're trying to get to another group of Aes Sedai. Suan was very well connected with sort of the eyes and ears and sort of the spy network and maybe knowing how to track down this other group, because the tower is divided. They were Aes Sedai fighting Aes Sedai. Some people who, supported Suan. Suan is of the Blue Aja, and a lot of the Blues, I think all of them, most of them, right, are gone. As far as I know, I think it's almost all of them. They definitely were not a part of the stilling or the takedown, if you will. So, yeah, out the gate, we're on the run, man. What do you think? I mean, we got our characters on the road, running.
It's good.
Burning down barns.
No, it's good. I like it because it makes it feel like, oh man, we're in trouble, right? Because the previous chapter is, wow, okay, the tower. We knew obviously there was sort of the heightened sense at the end of the last book where the tower gets sort of taken over. And then the last chapter is Eliada cracking the whip, saying, "Where are they? It's time to go." And then we see Padan Fain there, and so it's like, okay, we're setting up this sort of make it seem like we're actually in trouble. And so now it's like, I think we kind of think, because we've seen everybody else, Matt and Perrin and Rand and Nynaeve and everybody sort of in their travels, they've seen like they kind of we're past that sort of like traveling itself is sort of scary, right? Like that's Eye of the World stuff, like with Rand, where it's like, oh, we're out on our own. And so we're kind of getting a little bit of that again here. Even though we've now been established to think that, oh, just because we have access to the power or whatever, travel isn't really scary anymore. Well, okay, there are consequences to your actions, and it is still the world itself can still be sort of dangerous aside from Trollocs and things like that. And so I think that's kind of a good reminder. For the beginning of this book. Well,
and you're right, because we're following three. Let's see, you got Leanne, Suan, and Logain, who are all stilled or gentled, right? I mean, they've been severed from the one power, and Min is actually can still see symbols right around Logain and different things. So you're right. We've seen that power that's really. It's magnificent. It can do a lot of things. It can be taken away from you, and we can be kind of shut down. You see the consequences here of this. And it is cool, though. I mean, God, you have Suan, who is the highest, probably one of the most powerful people on the continent, right? She's the Amerlin seat. She is stilled and brought low. Her face, by the way, you notice her face has changed a little bit. Did you notice all the physical kind of differences?
Yeah, they explain a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because the use of the one power and being connected to it kind of gives them that agelessness, which we talked about, in the whole Moiraine trailer. People were kind of griping like, oh, does she look ageless? She looks fine.
She looks great.
She's Rosamund Pike. She's great. So anyway, yeah, and you have they have to kind of find something to keep pushing towards and working on that's going to cause them to keep wanting to live. So they've been cut off from the power. Basically, I think about it like being cut off from the Force and how you would want to die. It's such a part of you, like it's almost like attached to your soul and spirit. It's very much keeping you in harmony. And then it's a part of who you are. You are a channeler. That's in your nature. And it's a void that they're trying to fill. So Leanne fills it differently than Suan, who is just still about her causes and still about being involved and her whole thing. Logain basically wants the promise of revenge against the Red Aja, and then Leanne is basically acting as a Damani woman, and she's trying to use some of those old skills and her upbringing to seduce men or to manipulate certain individuals into giving them information or what they need or what have you. So kind of interesting, because when they go in here, Gareth Bryne is is there, and he is trying to, figure out what to do with these girls. What should the punishment be? Leanne tries to kind of make eye contact. Or whatever. He's not interested in her. It's Suan, right, who he's like making the eye contact with. He has this strong kind of, and I'll actually read his point of view here. So what happens? They go before him. Logain actually ends up kind of helping them get out of there and kind of rescues them, had stolen a purse and so on. Knocks out Joni, one of the guards, and boom, they're off and running. Now, they had sworn an oath to Gareth Bryne that they were going to, repay him and work and all that kind of stuff. And they had sworn a pretty significant, oath. I don't have it in front of me exactly, but it's a pretty, legit, once you say these words, it's all that would really kind of convince him. So Gareth Bryne then gets ready to pursue the 3 Oathbreakers. He's very surprised they did make a run for it. He leaves the manor in the capable hands of Carlin, I think. Is that his name? Mm-hmm. Who has been managing it for years while he was leading Andorran armies. So remember that he's sort of the general there under Morghese in Caemlyn. So this is Gareth Bryne. Bryne is the last of his line, and Carlin has been trying to interest him in women since he has been sent away by Morghese. So Morghese sends him away. We're all we've got question marks right now as to why did she do that? Why did Morghese send Gareth Bryne away? He's there in the eye of the world. He takes Rand. He's there when Rand is received by Morghese, right? So anyways, she seems to think that the Damani girl might be the one. Bryne is, for some reason, more intrigued by the girl from Tyr. So kind of cool. It's just interesting Gareth turns to the group of graying experienced soldiers he's taking with him on this chase, and they're all dependable men, good guys. And then one of his men had just come back from New Brame, a small city not too far from the Bryne estate. He tells him of the fall of the stone and a man who drew Calendor. Now, again, this is kind of that cool thing where you hear different... So now we're in Core Springs in Andor. Gareth Bryne is hearing about the prophecies being fulfilled. He's heard about Suan, the Amerlin seat, being deposed, her death, and the death of a false dragon named Logain. Now a man is drawing Calendor. Ironically, he doesn't know this at the time, but Suan is right in front of him. We know this. Logain is there as well. So, yeah, it's just a really interesting thing. We're still, again, like I said, wondering, what is he doing here? These big characters crossing paths, and we'll find out more about their dynamic later. But, yeah, just a really interesting setup here. Now, if you're cool with this, we're going to shift points of view. We're going to go back to the royal palace in Caemlyn, which I think this is good because we had references to Morghese. We had references to Gareth Bryne and his command there. Now we're going here, and we're with High Lady Altima. I think you say it Altima.
Yeah, Altima.
Who is there, who has come for an audience with Queen Morghese. She's annoyed with having to put up with her Andorran maid, and she's just kind of a little bit, not in the great, not in a really good mood. Talonvor. Now this guy, he's an officer named Talonvor, takes her to the queen. Altima has heard rumors about Morghese having a new lover. Let me come back to Talonvor, okay? That's a guy, it's a name I want to mention, Talonvor. I like this guy. I'm mentioning him because I enjoy this character. So you remember how I kind of gravitated towards the Sniffer and Inktar?
Yes. He's another one.
So let me gravitate towards this guy.
Yeah, he's Huron 2.0.
Yeah, he may be. And again, I will say nothing more than I just like him. That's all I want to say. I wanted to say it. Thank you for allowing me to say it. All right. So, yeah, there's some rumor going on in Caemlyn that Morghese has a lover and this new relationship that she's in. Morghese is obviously in love and probably quite protective. So Altima is here talking, right? Morghese asks how her husband is with Altima, right? She didn't think that Morghese would remember that. They only met once. She replies that he was well last time she saw him and that he is now serving the Dragon Reborn. All right, there we go. Now, this is one of those guys who, from Tyr, right, is serving the Dragon Reborn. Morghese remembers Rand and her advisor, Elaida, and how she had warned her about him. Remember, Elaida has that kind of, vision, like good stuff about him. So, and now she's in power, man. Now she's at the White Tower kind of doing her thing.
Is she in power, though? It seems like she was struggling last time. It seems like people don't really respect her authority.
Yeah, well, exactly. What's Podon Fane doing there, too, right? I mean, he's up to no good around her, so.
How's he just walk in? Well, I mean, he's
Podon Fane. Well, he's Fane, baby.
Okay.
Oh, my God. No, I don't know. I really, I mean, it's odd. Actually, that part, it's odd that a man would come request, would request an audience like that. I think they say at one point when Min's all dressed up that any woman in the city can come request. That
is true. Yes.
Yeah. So that's interesting. All right. Yeah. Altima asked Morghese if she has replaced Elaida now that she's Amyrlin. So she doesn't necessarily know about this rift per se. It's kind of a dangerous subject. Morghese says that she most certainly did not replace her yet. She seems very proud of her daughter Elaine, who has been raised to accept it. And remember, Elaine is writing letter. The whole thing. Yep. Matt came to Caemlyn to kind of let them all know she's fine. That Elaine is fine. Morghese tells her she wants to know about Rand. This is the opening that Altima has been waiting for. Gabriel now enters the room, and Morghese beams at him. Gabriel tells Morghese she should rest for a while. The annoyed look on her face quickly disappears when he puts a hand on her shoulder. I mean, when you read into this, like when you go line by line and you really look at like what's happening to Morghese here and how her mood and everything seems to be shifting really quickly at his presence, it's interesting. She leaves the room. Gabriel now starts asking Altima questions, and she feels the urge to answer him with the truth, to please him like Morghese, in ways that she can't even think of. So she tells him that she tried to murder her husband and that she is now here because of it. She tells about what happened in Tyr, everything Gabriel wants to know. So now, did you get a weird kind of feel about Gabriel when we, like some crazy stuff just with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime we meet sort of a new character who, as always, I'm suspicious.
You should be.
Okay? I'm always suspicious. Everyone's a little sus when they first walk onto the scene.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely like the way he's all of a sudden dismisses kind of the queen. She looks at him. The rumor is there's a lover. There's a lot of stuff being hinted at here. The lack of an Aes Sedai advisor. That's odd for a queen of Caemlyn. So yeah. And then you actually, right after that, you switch to Morghese's point of view. She's in her bedchamber and she sends the attendants out. Why did she tell Gabriel she was tired? Or did he tell her? ? Why does she think of Brynn all of a sudden? Morghese is confused, but falls asleep quickly. So yeah, man, some crazy stuff going on in that first chapter. We're figuring out where our runaways are from the White Tower, and then we're bouncing down to Caemlyn and figuring out what's going on there. We know something was up when Matt came through and delivered the letter and stuff. He definitely, something was not right. And he heard some things about Elaine that didn't seem good.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Hey, chapter 2 is Rhuidean. So we're back with Rand. And remember, last time we were with him, he's with the Aiel, right? They were getting ready they're trying to choose the Kara Karn. And now I'm blanking on his name.
Couladin?
Couladin. Yeah. Couladin's trying to act like I'm the Dragon Reborn. Yeah, okay.
Couladin, get out of here.
Get out of here, bro. Like, what is he doing?
Who gave you those dragon markings?
Everyone's looking around like, what is this guy even talking about? And then Rand's like, prove it. Prove it.
Yes. No, seriously. That was that moment, by the way, I just take a second here. That was a sick moment when you're at the rock. Wait till you see that, right? And your voice is booming out over all of these Aiel and everything. And they're trying to prove who is it that's going to take that title of he who comes with the dawn. Yeah.
See, I just don't know that you can end a season on that moment. right?
Yeah,
theoretically, yeah. That's
right.
I just don't. That's it's like a cool ending moment for a book. But if that had been the end of a book, and then I had to wait for the next one, that feels like a middle of the book kind of a.
It's not as big of a. I get
it's
you.
kind of a middle of the book kind of an event. But
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're back. We're back in Rhuidean.
Right.
Rand's looking out right over a tall window, one of the biggest rooms in the ruins of Rhuidean. He sees Moiraine, and she's directing the salvaging of power-related objects. Rand already took what he needed. Aiel had been moving in the city, occupying many of the buildings, and starting to cultivate crops with water from the new formed lake. Rand can see the burnt remains of the Tree of Life. Moiraine says the tree still lives and will produce shoots again. Rand turns his attention back to the 6 Aiel clan chiefs in the room, only 6 of the 12 Aiel clans represented. Rand wants to know what he has to do to get the others to join him. The chiefs agree that there's not much to do but wait. The revelation of Aiel descending from pacifist shocked them to the core, right? That they may have once belonged to the Way of the Leaf. That was kind of at the in the end of the last book, right?
Yeah, real quick, just a quick reference to that, because so the Gen Aiel, right? I mean, they're questioning Rand about his decision here to do what he does, but it's proof beyond proof. And yeah, people are going to run from this, but the men and women who had built Rhuidean and had died there, those called the Gen Aiel, the clan that was not on the few occasions they were spoken of, had been the ones who kept faith with the Aes Sedai of the time before the breaking. It was hard to face the knowledge that what you had always believed was a lie. So they, because of disgrace and dishonor and abandoning the way, they started to kind of shun it, and it became a thing that they despised because it reminded them of a broken promise and a broken kind of lifestyle, like an abandonment, essentially. So although as you go back through Rhuidean, when Rand did that, I think it's hard to say, like, I'm not going to pick up the sword. Look at the Tinker, the whole, the Tinker and the sword that we had back in the Two Rivers. You have people killed, and he's like, I need to defend my people I love and care for. Tough stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, they all get that revelation and it's crazy because it's like so many of them didn't know except for the people who did know, and they're like, that one kind of tells that Rand does know what he's talking about, but they choose to keep that secret. Really, it seems. Like kind of.
Yep, for sure.
So yeah, so certainly a big deal. So you still got some stuff going on here. Rand and Moiraine still kind of
right.
Tension. There,
yes, sir.
Right. Moiraine showing him, thinks that Egwene thinks that Rand's head is getting big. You got some more tension there. Rand kind of is getting ready to be like, I'm gonna go do what I'm gonna go do, and that's gonna be it. So
yeah. Like Moiraine is this whole time. I think he doesn't know he's struggling with like no one's gonna lead me this way or that way. I'm not gonna let the Forsaken have me. I'm not gonna bow to the Aiel, Wise Ones clan chiefs, and Moiraine has been there since the beginning. So again, remember, I say that Moiraine has been there since the beginning. She found him. She is epic. Okay, never forget that Moiraine is epic, and right now she's really embodying that whole, like, it's come full circle. Like, this is an Aes Sedai who is there taking so she's the wagons, right, full of power related objects, right? She's loading up the wagons and saying, and Rand is going to send a strong guard, and help them along. Interestingly, though, Kadir, who is one of the peddlers, is a part of this group and is kind of helping with some of these objects of power. And we learn not to, there's a couple of these guys in Kadir's group. You got to watch the eyes. Got some shifty people in among the peddlers. This is where
I don't trust any of the peddlers.
I wouldn't either. You had Lanfear hiding in there. You had Asmodean hiding in there. So Jason Natail has continued to be a Gleeman. That's his name. That's what he was going by. So as they come back, Asmodean is Jason. And so Jason is supposed to be training Rand, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so let's see. All right. So they're disagreeing. Let's see here. Moiraine, you said she's showing him the seals. Right? The seals that she found in Rhuidean, saying it's so brittle that it could be smashed with a hammer. The seals that hold the Dark One imprisoned are weakening. The one she brought with her from Tyr is in the same condition. Rand is not ready to fight the last battle yet. Moiraine wants to know what Rand is planning, and he refuses to tell her, and she accuses him of hiding. Saying he's left a trail of destruction behind him, but he can't stay in the Aiel waste forever. Provoking Rand tells he means to bring 11 Aiel clans over the Dragon Wall to unite the lands.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. He is bringing a whole nation worth of people like across. And this is a force that we had the Aiel War, which was already magnificent, and they can do whatever they want. They're hard to deal with. Yeah, he's going to unite the land, man. So,
yeah, they talk a little bit about Shara as.
Oh yeah, they do.
East of the waste. They didn't really go into it that much, other than they just kind of mentioned that it's there and it has its own things, and that was really kind of it. But they did mention it.
Yeah, they do, and it's still kind of a land of mystery, and we can kind of. I don't have that pulled up in front of me, but I do remember them mentioning it early on, and because when you say it, unite the lands, I think it was sort of one of those things to show, okay, these lands, not those lands, is sort of what Robert Jordan is doing. Although there's stuff there, where he's kind of just placeholder, leave that for later. We'll talk about that down the road. So
yeah. Okay, and then that's there's a little bit more in this chapter. Moiraine kind of leaves. Egwene tells him that he's ill-mannered. Right, she kind of criticizes Rand a little bit. Right. Then a voice in his head speaks up and he freezes. He has no idea where it came from. Egwene stops her tirade and looks at him worried. She asks if something is wrong, if she should get Moiraine. Rand says that this is not something that can be healed. He changes the subject and asks how Elaine is. Egwene just wants to say she is well and gets ready to leave. She tells him to get some rest. A goblet of wine floats up to Rand, and he snatches it out of the air. He promises Egwene he'll get some rest. Before she leaves, Egwene tells him Elaine loves him. When she is gone, Rand throws the goblet away and furiously turns around to face Natail.
Yeah. So let me I have this part kind of pulled up here where she kind of freaks out when she sees him, acting all strange. So, he's talking to Egwene about studying with the Wise One. She wore Aiel clothes. She might even be trying to adopt Aiel customs and so on. But she worked hard at being a proper Aes Sedai all the time, even if she was only one of the accepted. Aes Sedai usually kept a rein on their tempers, but they never ever gave anything away that they wanted to hide. And then you have an italicized. Ileana never flashed her temper at me when she was angry with herself. When she gave me the rough side of her tongue, it was because his mind froze for an instant. He had never met a woman named Ileana in his life. But he could summon up a face for the name dimly, a pretty face, skin like cream, golden hair exactly the shade of Elaine's. Exactly the shade of Elaine's. This had to be the madness. Remembering an imaginary woman, perhaps one day he would find himself having conversations with people who were not there. So, sometimes I think I almost think he blacks out sometimes during those episodes where he's wondering who's in my head, who's talking, who's doing what. So Egwene then is like, are you okay? Is something wrong? But I just wanted to kind of point out that he has that moment where, we've heard Ileana.
Yeah, we know who Ileana is, yeah.
Right? The whole thing. So anyway, just kind of interesting. And then, Natail at the end there using possibly some of the power, and just he's pissed. Rand he is worried about Moiraine being that close. I mean, he needs Natail there to tell him what's up and how to use the power and to teach him some things, but he also cannot have his cover blown here. So he's really keeping this, information close to the chest about having one of the Forsaken literally right in the same room. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, yeah, it's a big deal. Okay, and so continuing on here, let's continue on. So chapter 3, Pale Shadows, right? So we have a Rand point of view and a Mat point of view. So Rand sort of seizes Saidin and snatches Jason up from the cushions. Furiously, he warns the Forsaken never to channel in front of people again.
Yep.
Rand can't see the shield that prevents Asmodean. No, he must think of him as Jason. From channeling more than a trickle, but he knows the man is not a threat. Asmodean tells him they wouldn't suspect anyway. Women can't see the flows woven by men. Rand uses the captured Forsaken to teach him. Only a man who can channel can do that, and only men who Rand has come across are the Forsaken, the only men who can channel. Not much of a choice he has, but to learn. Mm-hmm. Asmodean isn't much of a teacher. The process is frustrating Rand, but he will get as much information out of the man as he can. He asks again about the other Forsaken, but Asmodean can't provide much new information. Conversation turns to linking. Why can women link without men, but men can't without women? Osmodian doesn't seem to know. He doesn't seem to think his chances of survival, or Rand's for that matter, are very big. He intends to kill the Dark One himself, or he intends to kill himself before the Dark One breaks free, and deals out a punishment of Osmodian's betrayal. A group of maidens walk into the room to get Rand. Like the clan chiefs, the maidens are uneasy about the changes Rand has brought. Not only the bleakness, but quite a few of them have given up the spear to marry recently. Rand knows what the cause of that is. He weaves a trap so Asmodean can't escape and follow the maidens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing interesting here, I'll read some of this to you guys. It's the linking bit. So let me see here. He's talking to him. Rand nodded slowly. If it did make a kind of sense, Elaine and Egwene were considered two of the strongest women to train in the tower for 1,000 years or more, but he had tested himself against them once. And later, Elaine had confessed that she felt like a kitten seized by a mastiff. Asmodean was not finished. He said, if two women link, they do not double their strength. Linking is not as simple as adding together the power of each, but if they are strong enough, they can match a man. And when they take the circle to 13, then you must be weary. 13 women who can barely channel could overpower most men linked. The 13 weakest women in the tower could overpower you or any man and barely breathe hard. Wow. I came across this saying in Aradamon, quote, the more women there are about, the softer a wise man steps. It would not be bad to remember it. So he's letting 13 women link up. You don't stand a chance.
Now, is that just for any male channeler, or does that even include the Dragon Reborn?
Well, hey, I mean, who knows? I mean, that I don't know. This is all the stuff. Now, remember, it's Asmodean telling him this, and he is trying to teach him, keep him. Right now, Asmodean's pretty much tied himself in saying the more successful. I mean, he's got two choices here. Well, maybe he's got more, but the way I see it, Rand is. If he's successful and Rand does his thing, cool. He's helped serve Rand, and he'll, in some way, at least be able to live out his life and not be destroyed or whatever. The Dark One could destroy him. Or hopefully he's hoping that they'll forgive him and say that he was forced into this service. This is not what he wanted. He was severed, and he'll take the punishments, get back in the Dark Lord's graces. But whatever. I mean, but yeah, I mean, he's giving him some of these secrets and talking about linking and things that, we look for the number 13, man. Look for significance in 13 women and look at the Black Aja and look at people moving around. What can they do? And I'd say pay attention to it in regards to the Forsaken and to our channelers that we're close to. So, yeah.
All right, let's switch over to Matt.
Yep.
So Matt is drunk.
Yes.
He's drunk. He's hanging out. He's, just living it up. That's what Matt does. He's sitting at a campfire near Kadir's men, singing a song to himself. One of Kadir's men makes a comment about it. He realizes nobody has heard it in a long time. The memories he's got are getting harder and harder to separate from his own. At least he wasn't using the old tongue again. Matt has been playing a knife-throwing game with the Aiel. His luck is so good, nobody will play dice with him anymore. His winnings in this game are good as well, though. Corman, one of the Aiel, has been playing wants to stop because the light is failing. Matt says he could do it blindfolded, right? Without even betting on it, he demonstrates it. Corman makes it clear he will not gamble with Matt anymore. A maiden comes up to him and asks if he can do that every time. Matt answers truthfully he can do it most of the time. On an impulse, he digs into his winnings and gives the woman, who introduced herself as Melindra, a necklace. She tells him she accepts his offer. Not that Matt knows what offer he made exactly. Aiel people are strange. Matt sees Rand approaching in the company of a few maidens. He recognizes Adolin and Anala. He tells Melindra he'll be right back. Rand doesn't seem to hear him when Matt calls after him, not until he uses the name Luce Theron. Anyway. Yep. Matt tells Rand of his intention to leave with Kadir. Rand won't try to stop him, but suggests the pattern might. He also tells him not to trust Kadir. Melindra catches up with him when Rand moves on. She tells him he has attracted her interest. Matt wants to know if Daughter of the Nine Moons means anything to her. It doesn't, but she does know a few entertaining things to do by moonlight. So,
Melindra, what is going on here?
What is going on?
What is going? Matt's all worried about that he's gonna marry, right, the Daughter of the Nine Moons, and so he's asking.
Every woman he meets. He's
yeah.
Like, so...
Does that mean anything to you, or is that something we should kind of look into? Yeah. So, yeah, he's at least he's happy he's not using the old tongue. He's having trouble separating those memories, and he's still, remember, he's Ta'veren, right? He wants to move in his own direction, but right now, Rand is kind of reminding him. He's basically saying, "Go ahead. It's not me. Good luck." If I need you, that bond is there. If the pattern needs you, you'll go where the pattern needs, and people will move around you. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things, being Ta'veren. But yeah, he's struggling with it. He is bound and determined he's going to go with Kadir, and he's out of there. So,
we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, let's move to chapter 4 here, which is Twilight. This is a Rand and Aviendha chapter, and wow, man, I'm gonna just say things with Aviendha here are how do you say, heating up? Let's just say there's some tension that you could easily cut with a knife,
a spear,
or a spear, or a heron marked blade,
whatever,
or a power wrought butter knife. Okay,
right.
I mean, it's getting pretty obvious here. So, really, that's what the majority of this chapter is Rand and Aviendha, right? Sort of talking, and Rand saying, she's telling him she hates him, and Rand saying, "Well, if you hate me, you don't have to be around me anymore." And she's like, "Well, that's not really
right." Now hold on a second. Yeah,
as like let me get the actual text pulled up here.
Well, and the thing is too. So yeah, she kind of. It all goes back to Elaine. It goes back to she made there's promises been your promise to Elaine, the constant reminders. The wise ones are saying, "Hey, you're going to be close to him. You're our eyes in there." It's kind of obvious. Rand gets it, but yeah, I mean, she went to Rhuidean herself and saw visions. She saw her own things. We've not heard anything about that yet, but. Remember, that's what happens when you go to Rhuidean. So
right,
she's definitely, a character who she's become extremely important, and extremely important to Rand. And Rand is trying to make it like, look, if you want to go, you can go, like you said, or you can stay. He's even trying to give her, give her things and make her feel more comfortable. And everything he does, it's kind of like he violates custom, or he does something that he doesn't really intend to do, because the Aiel customs are so kind of strange, and she feels like she's a bad teacher. Or does he really mean it? Does he even know what he's doing? It's wild. So
yeah, but that's ultimately, I mean, then, she kind of reminds him again, that, hey, you belong to Elaine, which I think that might be what's frustrating her. Just gonna go ahead and say that one. Then, of course, she leaves, and Rand has dreams of Min, Aviendha, and Elaine, and they're mostly pleasant. So
right. They're mostly pleasant. Yeah, I'm sure they were extremely pleasant. So here we go, real quick. This is the part where I was trying to find it quickly for you guys. Aviendha's upset by something he gives her. So to his surprise, she folded her arms beneath her breast and paced the short length of the room twice before stopping to glare at him. This was not a regard gift, she said accusingly, shaking the bracelet at him. You admitted as much. So, again, and I to be honest with you, buddy, anybody who wants to write in and tell me more about the Aiel customs and stuff, it is something every time I read it, I just go, okay, maybe we'll get more. And we do get more. I sometimes forget all of the different things and
all the little,
the nuances of their culture. Very interesting group of people. So she's shaking it. She's upset. This is not a regard gift. You admitted as much. True, though he thought she might have put a knife in his ribs had he not conceded it. It was simply a full gift from a man who did not know or care what the Spear Sisters might think. Well, this has no meaning either. She pulled something from her pouch and tossed it onto the pallet beside him. It cancels debt between us. Right? So she's giving him a gift back. This cancels debt between us. Rand picked up what she had thrown and turned it over in his hands, a belt buckle in the shape of a dragon ornately made in gold, steel, and inlaid with gold. Thank you. It's beautiful, Aviendha. There is no debt to cancel. If you will not take it against my debt, she said firmly, then throw it away. I will find something else to repay you. It is only a trinket. Hardly a trinket. You must have had this made. Do not think that means anything, Rand al'Thor. When I gave up the spear, my spears, my knife, unconsciously with her hand, she brushed her belt where that long-bladed knife used to hang. Even the points of my arrows were taken from me and handed to a smith to make simple things to give away. Most I gave to friends, but the wise ones had me name the 3 men and 3 women I most hate. And I was told to give each of them a gift made from my weapons with my own hands. Bear says it teaches humility. Boom. So, I mean, this is like, she's that she hates. Why does she hate this guy? Well, she hates him. So what's all this tension you're talking about? Does she hate him?
Well, all I'm going to say is, a lot of the women in Rand's life seem to hate him. Okay.
Right. I mean, what's the whole deal?
But what's funny is that it's like, it's almost like in Wheel of Time, love is described as hate, at least for like quite a bit, with really kind of the exception of Perrin and Fael. But, Nynaeve and Lan, it's like, oh, I can't stand him. I can't stand him. Okay, well, here we go. All right. Right. Even Elaine, some curse you, Rand, all this stuff, and it's just building.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we know Min likes him, same thing. Like, why does it have to be you? Why all these things? I'm bound
they're almost
to
put
all
out.
This stuff.
Yeah, they're almost put out that like, oh, I'm like, yeah. So you're seeing the same thing with Aviendha here, kind of someone who's not happy. And actually, she goes as far as to say, let's see. Yeah, he was wondering. I wonder who gave it to her, Aviendha. Was I one of those you hate so much? Yes, Rand al'Thor, she suddenly said. I hate you with all of my heart. I do, and I always will. What?
I mean, that's just kind of rude.
I'm
not gonna lie. I mean, I know it's called Rhuidean, but I mean, come on, man.
Rhuidean. Oh my gosh. No, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, so something's up, something's going on, and like you said, she fits the pattern, if you will, of the other of some women who have been interested or who have been close to Rand. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to save chapter 5 for extended edition, or do we want to dive into it and do something else for extended edition?
Let's see. This is among the wise ones. Well, yeah. I mean, essentially, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, we'll mention this, and then we can definitely save this for extended edition. But essentially, as you said, the tension increases, right? I mean, the one thing we'll say here, and we'll expand on it. It's talked about like whether or not Aviendha should sleep with or sleep in the same room as Rand. Now, come on.
I mean, know.
What's going
ridiculous.
on? Right. Egwene is shocked, right? It just isn't proper. Aviendha asked the wise ones not to make her do it. She hates the man. The wise ones will have none of that. And in the end, Egwene has to admit he might, like that, it might be a good idea, right? Or something. Right. There's
and again we'll save some of this, but I mean, they don't really go into it, but I guess maybe if you're the wise ones and this guy's going to be the guy to unite everything, I think you would prefer him to sort of be with one of your own rather than potentially somebody else in their mind.
Okay.
As if you're thinking, hey, if this guy is the Dragon Reborn, I mean, it seems like, every woman in the land is going to be sort of, he's like a king. I mean,
remember,
is he the most eligible bachelor?
Yeah, you'd think, right? I mean, right? Yeah. Interestingly, he had Egwene, and he are promised at the beginning. Comes across Min. He and Egwene start to already kind of feel like they're drifting apart. They settle it, they're friends.
Right.
Wishes Elaine the best. Min has already been there holding him over after Valdara, right? The Great Hunt, right? Lanfear. Aviendha shows up and is like, they're revering, seeing this person as he who comes with the dawn. She knows the consequences of that. Once she goes to Rhuidean, she comes back, she hates him, right? That's kind of where we're at. Now she's being forced in more so by the wise ones. You had Berelain did the same thing, came after Rand, wanted to get close to him because now her thing, and by the way, I like Berelain, which is she's trying to use all of her
feminine wiles.
Yes, to protect. Really, it's in service of her country and her city state, where she's trying to make this alliance that would really help them. So yeah, I could see why the wise ones might want to try something like that, right? Is that what you're saying? Is that maybe they would want to try to make an alliance, or really sure things up with like a lover? Being
I can see it. I mean,
yeah.
We read that other series, Game of Thrones. That's like 90% of it. So
marriage alliances, yeah,
it's marriage alliances, yeah.
Yeah, good point. Okay, awesome, cool. We'll expand more on that. There's definitely a few more things with Giotto and some of the Aiel Wise Ones customs. We'll extend that for you guys over on Patreon. And thanks again to everyone who does support us on Patreon. We really appreciate you guys. And we just kind of, those extended editions, I love doing those, and I think those are fun. We just kind of get to extend the chapter and talk a little bit more loose, a little loose on those episodes, and it's fun. So, great start though. Great start,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Fires.
I feel good about this book so far.
Yeah. It's solid. I think. What are you looking? I mean, who are you? What storyline, I guess, are you most interested in as you move?
Well, so now that I've seen a little bit of Rand's storyline, which of course Rand is still the one I'm ultimately going to be the most intrigued by because he's like the main character. Or at least the most central part of the story. But right now, the guy I really want to see, and again, it's so interesting because it's like you come and you go, right? Sometimes it's like, all right, this is kind of boring because whatever. Like when Elaine and Nynaeve and when they're on like a boat, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's cool. Okay, you're on a boat, whatever. And then Perrin, sometimes I'm like, all right, well, but right now Perrin's exciting. So I'm like, okay, I kind of want to see what's going on with Perrin.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, everything that's like his climax there. I mean, he's
it's a back and forth with a lot of characters because I think it just sometimes it's just they're kind of in a boring spot where somebody else is in a really high spot, and because you jump around so much, it's like whoa, it's
right. No, I can totally see that, and that's I appreciate that, and I think I've said this before, that we go on stretches where we just stay with one character and we build, because sometimes I do get a little bit lost in like, oh, now we're jumping where's this, and I know he does it for a reason and it's important,
Right.
and sometimes, but I find myself, especially even in a reread now, hustling through a chapter to get back to another batch of chapters, and I'm like, well, wait a second though, that chapter was super significant, and I almost have to go back and refresh myself on what happened there. And that's just me being a impatient reader.
But. And in this series, I will say, compared to just using Game of Thrones as an example, which is also a POV book, this I think it would be hard to do I just want to follow somebody's story, because sometimes you'll get like there's multiple POVs in a chapter, but then also like events happen like all at once, kind of a thing, like something that happens in like Rand's chapter, because they can communicate through the dream world, all this stuff, you sort of lose that sense of, well, he's way over here and they're way over here, because you can basically just cut that out, and because they can traverse so easily. It's not like in Game of Thrones, for example, where it's like you're reading about characters who won't even meet for like books.
True.
And so you can just do like a straight, just as example, Daenerys. You can just pretty much read start to finish Daenerys, all the Daenerys POVs, and you can get a full story just out of that. Whereas with this, it's a lot harder to do, right? Because like anytime characters are together, like Matt, a lot of Matt stuff is inside other people, chapters that are multiple POVs, so it's kind of hard. So you do kind of have to read it all together. I'm sure somebody out there has done a guide of like, read this chapter, read this chapter, read this, for maybe like this person's POV, which would be an interesting resource to check out sometime. Yeah. But I guess the other storyline is Logain. I want to get some. He's.
Oh my god!
I'm excited to get some Logain, man. He's. What's the deal? He's
false dragon.
The false dragon.
Fighting down in Gai'don. I mean, the whole series opens
cast in season 1, so clearly he's a big deal.
Right. And what's cool is now I can talk a little bit more about him, right? Because we've gotten to this point where, look at this guy. He's hanging around.
Right. And
what's he up to?
What do you think the deal is with him being cast in season 1?
Oh, I think they're totally bringing. You know what?
Do you think he
now
escapes
hold on
in season 1? Now that we can.
This
talk
is a
about
good.
it?
This is a really okay. I actually think either he escapes. Or maybe they just show us more of what I've said this before, what a false dragon can do, the power, him versus Red Aja kind of stuff, maybe. And maybe some of the stuff at the end of the season, some White Tower drama goes down or something. Or it's probably more likely that he gets caught and captured, but then does escape them. But it's not like he goes all the way to the White Tower and is
right. Is he and
stilled.
I don't know this because we're not reading it yet. Is he in New Spring?
Oh, good question. I actually, full disclosure, I don't think so. And I'm saying that because I think that takes place much earlier. It follows Moiraine.
Way earlier.
I think so. And again, people are going to be like, I can't believe S hasn't actually. I've read the whole wiki page on it. I've never read New Spring, guys. That's that. Never read it. I'm pretty sure that follows Green Aja.
Especially now because we've talked about this. I said, it's just so odd that they cast him when they haven't announced other people who you're like, okay, if season 1 is going to be certainly Eye of the World, if not stuff, and it seems like Eye of the World and Great Hunt are probably going to be season 1 with a sprinkling of New Spring, is what it seems like. Why would you cast Logain and not have like a Lane cast?
Right, you have to really. I mean.
It's like because really in the first book you see him once and that's it. But so it seems like they're going to be pushing his story around a bit or make him bigger, or who knows what they're going to do with him. Right. Because now it's because really you hear about him in the 4th book that he was one of, he's out, but it's like we don't even see him really until the 5th book. And he's in season 1.
Exactly. No, good point. And just real quick, because I pulled up just so I'm not wrong. Yeah, he's not in, as far as I can, not in New Spring. Lan, Moiraine, Suan accepted way back before they're coming up kind of thing. So sorry if that's spoiler for anybody, but I mean, I don't know. New Spring's not something I'm concerned about yet. It will be. There will be stuff in it though. Like the whole point is like Moiraine is going to be a bigger focus. So we're going to get stuff with her and Suan. Why are they so close? How big of a deal is the Amyrlin? All that kind of stuff. So New Spring stuff is, and they've said it. They've said it's in season 1, and some of the castings have confirmed some of the Green Aja members and stuff that we will see. So that's something when we get to a good point. I don't know when we should do this, but you and I should bounce over and check that out. I don't know when we're going to have time to do that, but maybe someone can give us some guidance. A listener or someone can tell us when's a good time to do that.
Is it okay? Because I don't think it wasn't written after the last book. I think it was written. I thought I looked this up once, and it was like written like it was like 8 or 9 books were done, and then it came out. I tried to avoid it because I don't want I think the purpose of reading it is you've read the series, and so I also have. As the first time reader here, I try to stay off the wiki because it's just so easy to get something spoiled.
Oh yeah.
So if somebody could send us in a pigeon.
Yeah, guidance on that because it's
and say what do you think they're going to do with Logain's story in the show? Maybe without possibly being spoilers to where we're at. Just you could say something like, "Oh well." He has an arc that's going to get explained in this book that I could see them pushing forward, or however you want to sort of explain it. And then when is it okay to read New Spring? I guess maybe as another question, like when should you read that? Should you wait until the end, or is it okay to read it from the get-go, or when do you think is the best time to read that?
Right. So 2004 is when it says it was published. So yeah, I'll have to I'd love to hear from someone on that.
So that's way before Brandon Sanderson took over.
Yes, and also just real quick for time placement, it's about 20-ish years before Eye of the World. So that's around about there. So anyways, at some point, I think you're far enough in the series to where you can go back and kind of read some of that. I just have to look up and see when exactly is a good time to bounce over there. We don't even really need to necessarily. I don't really think you and I are just going to keep plowing through this series. And then as we get close to that show, so that's what, it might be a surprise for you. It might be kind of like, I haven't seen that. I don't know what they're going to drop in season 1. Because I actually just thought of something with Logain that I can't say because of where we are right now. And I'm thinking of hey, something that happens in this book.
It seems like we're going to be getting some Logain in this book. I mean, obviously we're
right.
I feel like we've had more of him already than we did the first time. Yes,
for sure. And so I won't say much more on that other than you guys know he's in it. He's significant. He's traveling with Suan, which is a big deal. So yeah, there's things that happen here that I'd be interesting to have a Logain conversation at the end of this book and say, where do we think, what now could we move forward? So. Yeah, interesting conversation.
Okay, awesome. All right, guys. Hey, guys. Well, with that, we want to thank you for answering the call. In our next episode, we will be discussing The Fires of Heaven, Part 2, which is going to be chapters 6 through 16. Now, a lot of these are a lot shorter than these. These are big, 1 hour chapters each. So.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And again, thanks to everyone for supporting us over on Patreon, following the YouTube page, all that good stuff. It really does help us out. Big time. And if you leave us that review on iTunes, that definitely will help us as we get closer to the show. Yeah, it's so huge. So if you're interested, if you're looking for another way to kind of help out and you don't want to support us on Patreon or YouTube, whatever, that iTunes review is literally a big deal. Facebook group running strong as well too. So thanks to everyone who's in there. Keeping it active and just good conversation in there. Honestly, it's nice. So if you like the podcast, don't forget to, as I said, subscribe, write that review for us, leave a comment, or send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you soon. And remember that the grave is no bar to our call.